Feel like it's going to be a great show. Already threatened to sue multiple people in the live chat. One of whomst did you see this, Jesse? Somebody just gave us $2. Andrew gave us $2 on a super chat. I got news for you, Andrew. We don't need $2. We already have $2. And on a much more serious note, I keep meaning to turn the super chat function off because please don't be giving us your money. The show's free. It's free for a reason. We got Quick Trip for all that. We're jam-packed. We're high atop lovely downtown Nashville, Tennessee, Tuesday night, October 14th, the year of our Lord, 2025. What do we do on Tuesday? We predict games. Got a pretty loaded schedule this weekend. Some people's lives, at least their playoff lives, could be ruined. Speaking of playoff lives, mine has kind of been ruined, at least in some respects, from the preseason predictions I made. But you see, that's why God gives us redos in life. And one of life's great mulligans is when you get to around week 7 or week 8 in the college football talking sphere, you could just make new predictions. We checked the bylaws today. There is no rule against it. So tonight, I'm just re-racking them, the playoff balls at least. I'm re-racking them, and I'm telling you, as of today, how do I think the playoffs going to go? But just be forewarned, I'm not letting go of some of these teams that are all but left for dead. I'm not letting go of some of them. So I've got that. I've got a brand new JP poll. We got a lot to talk about with Penn State. Some people have called my takes into question, Jesse. And Jesse has done very little to stand up for me in the Penn State world. So I got to stand up for myself here. And we'll also discuss where they could go. Are they going to hire Matt Rule? Random Marcus Freeman rumblings out there. What's real? What's fake? We'll talk about all of it. And they're watching us in Amarillo, Texas tonight. That's not something we're going to cover on the show. I'm just telling you they're watching us in Amarillo. They're watching us in Akron, Ohio, Gainesville, Florida, Baltimore, Maryland. I want to give a rare 1, 2, 3 triple paper pop. I asked you pretty forcefully on the show Sunday night, subscribe to the channel, please. 4,000 of you did. So we got 4,000 subs on Sunday and early Monday morning. So I appreciate it. So if you're one of the few remaining out there who love college football and haven't subbed to the channel, please do so because it's free and it doesn't cost you, sign you up for anything. It doesn't do anything to you. It just helps us. Thank you so much. All right, let's go. Dive into the show. I come to you on this Tuesday night here in mid-October begging you to let me repredict the college football playoff. And I hear no voice of dissent. Raise your hand if you're against this. All right, no one objected in the studio. So here we go. First thing you need to know is at the beginning of the season, reluctantly, I predicted the playoff. I say reluctantly because I don't think there's a whole lot of skill in this. This is what it looked like. Yes, that's the Florida Gator logo up there with the 8 seed. I don't think it's going to work out for Napier and the boys. Yes, that's Penn State with a first-round bye. I'm not even feeling that bad about that. I think most people, at least that I saw, had Penn State in the playoff. And as we all know, if you do something bad, but a lot of other people do it too, it's not your fault. It's written somewhere. So let's see. Clemson with a 5 seed down there, not feeling great about that. We're probably going to have to rethink that. You'll notice Nebraska has the 11 seed. More on that in a second. Arizona State, not too good. Texas, not too good, not quite dead. So, yeah, there's some stuff in here that, frankly, I wish I had back. But we can't go back in time. But what we can do tonight is we can just say, let's just repredict it. So I'm going to repredict the playoff. And I'm going to do it conference by conference, and then I'll show you what my 1 through 12 would be. And I know a lot of you listen on podcasts, so it's not going to be strictly visual. And you got to remind me of that, Jesse. I will lay it all out for you. So here we go. In the SEC, it's a jumbled mess. Well, it's not a mess because it's entertaining. It's just hard to figure out. The SEC is what the Big 12 used to be. Ironically, the Big 12 has become what the SEC used to be. One of them's really easy to figure out, and the other one, we've got 10 teams with 0 or 1 conference losses. Yes, that's the state of the SEC. Now, of course, mathematically, that can't continue. Ole Miss plays Georgia Saturday. LSU plays Vandy Saturday. Tennessee plays Alabama Saturday. So a lot of these teams are about to collide, and we'll see where it goes. I feel pretty good about 2 of these, but you'll notice if you look at the league standings, Ole Miss is right up there. For example, they've got no conference losses so far. Them, A&M, and Alabama, only undefeated SEC teams in league play. The odds right now, I think, make sense. So the odds at FanDuel to win the SEC are Alabama and then A&M. There's a little gap between Bama and A&M, Georgia's right there, and then it's a little bit of a gap, and then Ole Miss, Texas is still there. Then there's a huge drop-off. So you've really got a lead pack of 5 teams, and I think it's interesting that LSU's not part of that lead pack. Missouri's not part of that league pack. So from a FanDuel perspective, from a market perspective, they're saying Bama, absolutely the favorite. A&M, Georgia, Ole Miss, even Texas, we could see it. I will choose those top 2 teams there. Bama was my preseason SEC championship pick. They haven't even lost a conference game, and they've gotten a lot of the losable games out of the way. Still got a few to go, but I'll ride with them. But I am going to switch up the team that I think they'll play. I will put Texas A&M in Atlanta. That'll be the first time they've been there since they've been in the league. That would be just a huge, huge feather in the cap of Mike Elko, even making it there in year 2 of his tenure there. So give me Bama over A&M in the SEC championship game, and then we'll pause, and we'll see what that means for seeding. Next up, Big Ten. It's not totally clear, but it's coming into form really, really quickly here. Ohio State and Indiana have been the class of this conference so far. To me, I'm more worried about how does the rest of the conference backfill. By that, I mean, if it is Ohio State and Indiana, 1, 2 in any order, then what is Oregon? What is USC? What is Nebraska, Washington, Michigan? Like, how much of a say are these other teams downstream in the Big Ten standings going to have in the playoff bracket? So, like Nebraska, for example, I had them in my preseason playoff bracket, I think at the 11 seed. And right now, they're sitting here still having to play at Minnesota. They got Northwestern, USC, at UCLA, at Penn State, and Iowa. A lot of losable games, like Nebraska's far from invincible. But the one that you kept looking at after they lost to Michigan a couple of weeks ago was, they've still got to go to Penn State towards the end of the year. Well, that does not carry the same weight as a sentence that it used to. So there is no one hurdle there that you look at and say, there's the definitive second loss. In totality, do I think Nebraska's a good enough team where I can start penciling W's in there? No, I do not. However, I predicted them in the preseason, and I can't come off of this. So if there's some team that's going to weave their way through there as an at-large team, I'm still holding out hope for Nebraska. As for the Big Ten championship picture, Ohio State and Indiana. And I have a sneaking suspicion a lot of folks out there in very expensive suits are pulling for USC to upset that, because USC could go on a run here. You got to wonder how meaningful to the Big Ten championship picture will that USC at Oregon game be a little bit later in the year. For that matter, Oregon the week after, I think, plays Washington. This weekend, Washington goes to Michigan. That outcome will start to determine how much weight that Washington-Oregon game could carry. That's a long way down the road. Give me Ohio State against Indiana in the Big Ten championship game. Until further notice, I will ride with Ohio State. They are favored to win the conference, and then it's Indiana, and then there is a huge drop-off, like a roller coaster drop-off to Oregon, and then another huge drop-off to Michigan. So the Big Ten picture, as of right now, it's really in focus, and some stuff has to go wrong. And by that, I mean Indiana has to somehow lose a football game, or Ohio State, for things to change. In the Big 12, here we go with Texas Tech. Just a runaway freight train. But Josh, I'm looking at the league standings on the screen. They're one of 3 undefeated teams in conference play. Yes, they are. And I'm not taking anything away from Brigham Young. I'm just saying, you see Texas Tech and Cincinnati and Utah all there in the top 5. BYU still has to play all of them. They just hadn't played them yet. So from a JP poll power rating perspective, we don't think as highly of Brigham Young as some of these other teams. So I don't view them as a conference championship contender at the moment, but upsets happen every Saturday. They're really good at it. They play Utah Saturday, actually. So like this stuff could change in the next 24, 48, 72, 96 hours. You got to run the numbers here on the desk. Cincinnati versus Utah could be a play-in game for the conference title game when they do face off. I think Iowa State already with 2 conference losses, it's tough to see. Plus, they're really badly beat up. TCU and Kansas State also have 2 conference losses. So for the Big 12 championship game, Texas Tech, I think, is going to be there. They are the current fairly overwhelming favorite to win the whole thing in the Big 12. I think they're going to be there. I think they're going to have a rematch against Utah. And it's very interesting that everyone's going to remember, well, that game already happened, and it happened in Salt Lake City, and Texas Tech rolled half the game with their backup quarterback, and they still rolled. They did. There is no catch there. They did. I think you'd be somewhat surprised at how low that point spread would be. Just keep that in mind. Still a ways to go, but if that game does happen, you had a blowout in Salt Lake City. I think you may be surprised, relatively speaking, how low that point spread would be, because Texas Tech plays at Arizona State this weekend. They're a double-digit favorite. So, like, you're having to lay a heavy number if you're betting Texas Tech right now. In the ACC, this is the conference where the weirdness could happen. It used to be the Big 12. The Big 12 makes a lot of sense right now on paper. The ACC, this is where the weirdness could happen. Miami's looked like the best team here so far. I will grant you that. But Duke, SMU, Virginia, Georgia Tech, they're all undefeated in conference play right now. And they don't all play each other, and they don't all play a murderer's row of a schedule. So you need to also keep in mind, in fact, Jesse, do we have Miami's schedule? You need to keep in mind how Miami's season ends. It's very, very clear right now. Miami's going to be favored over everyone they play. They may be favored most weeks by double digits, but they have taken their last bye. They play Louisville this Friday night, I believe. And from that point on, it's all conference games, and they do not take another bye week. So count them right here with me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games in a row to end the regular season. The last 2 weeks are on the road in cold weather cities, at Virginia Tech and at Pittsburgh. If they are to make it to the ACC championship game, that would be a third consecutive week on the road. We've been talking about this since spring. It is very, very unenviable a spot to be placed in by the schedule makers. Now, if you're an Oklahoma fan and you know the schedule you have to play, you're looking at that saying, I would trade for that in a heartbeat. I know you would. Of course you would. I'm not sitting here saying that this is the toughest schedule you've ever seen. It's a really weird dynamics-based schedule. That's all I'm saying. So if they go to Charlotte, which I think they will, I've got Miami playing for the ACC championship game. They're the current minus 180 favorite to win the ACC. I think they'll be there. I've got them playing the team that has the second best odds to win the league right now, Georgia Tech. I have not budged off that. I had Georgia Tech playing for the ACC championship game before it was cool to have Georgia Tech playing in Charlotte. You give me Miami to beat Georgia Tech in Charlotte. However, just keep in mind, as we start to get towards what could potentially tear the bracket apart, Georgia Tech's going to be playing a team that may be beat up. Now, you don't know about the injury situation with Miami. Miami's a very star-studded team. There are portions of that Miami roster, just like with a lot of these high-level teams, where you remove the number one from this position group or that position group, and there is a fairly sizable drop-off to the number two. Now, if they stay healthy, that's a moot point. This is college football. It's not a fairy tale world. No one stays totally healthy. You just never know what situation they may be in. All right, let's take a look at what I think the seeding will be. So I just gave you my conference championship updated winners. Here is where I would have the seeding right now. I got Ohio State winning the Big Ten, so they'd be my number one overall. I got Miami winning the ACC. They're my number 2. Texas Tech rolls to win the Big 12. That's my number 3. And I got Bama as the SEC champ. I'm not so sure Bama may not lose another game, though. Just a little bit tougher schedule than some of these other teams here. That's why I've got Bama number 4. If Bama doesn't lose another game and they win the SEC, they'd be the 2 seed. But give me Bama as the 4 seed. All right. Big Ten championship game loser, Indiana. As of now, I've got to assume that's their first loss of the season. So they're going to be right there in the 5 seed. A&M, if that's their first or even second loss of the season, if a 0 or 1 loss A&M is in Atlanta, they're not dropping past 6. So I think pretty solidly your Big Ten and SEC title game losers are right there at 5 and 6. That's Indiana and A&M. I got Oregon at the 7 seed as an at-large. I got Ole Miss as an at-large at number 8. I'm rolling the dice a little bit there. Ole Miss could pop on the national radar big time this weekend. They could be exposed as a fraud this weekend. Like, there's high variance in that Georgia game. Ironically, I've got Georgia as the 9 seed. So give me Ole Miss, Georgia, 8-9. I've got Notre Dame in the playoff as of now. there's a lot of debate to be had there, and I will have that debate in just a second. I'm sticking with Nebraska at number 11. I had it in the preseason. I'm not coming off Nebraska. You got to kill some of my predictions before I'm willing to let them go. And I've got USF currently as the G5 team. Whoever the G5 team is, they'll be in that 12 spot. So the first thing that is going to immediately come to the forefront here before I show you the entire bracket is how will Notre Dame get paired or compared with some of these other teams? Notre Dame right now, so they're a 2-loss team. They have Southern Cal this weekend. If they lose this weekend, they will not be a playoff team. There are some people out there who claim even if Notre Dame were to win out right now, they still may not make the playoff. Now, my whole philosophy on that is consider what we're saying there. Notre Dame right now is 4-2. Their losses are to Miami by 3 and to A&M by 1. So theoretically here, that would be 2 losses by a combined 4 points to 2 playoff teams. One of them being a conference champ, the other participated in their conference championship game. So those are about as high quality losses as you could have. And the committee, I think, will be looking at that and then also looking at the fact that they just rattled off 10 straight wins. And they'll be saying things like they're the hottest team in the country. And I think there'll also be a talking point. Now, this is just priming you for this. I think if Notre Dame rattles off 10 straight and they finish 10-2, there will be a very popular sort of focus grouped talking point that starts to circulate about how if Notre Dame would have played Miami and A&M in the middle of the season after they got hot, maybe one of those games goes their way. And you can't disprove that. I just think it'll be ammunition in the chamber of someone who's already looking to make the Notre Dame argument. I'm just wondering how they get compared to like a 3-loss SEC team or even some 2-loss teams. Just that's going to be a big debate. It's impossible to know who A and B is right now. Notre Dame would be A. It's impossible to know who the B is right now. So you got that. Big 12 and ACC championship game could completely tear this bracket apart. Because right now, like in my projection, I've got Miami beating Georgia Tech. But it doesn't have to go that way. Georgia Tech could sit there and beat Miami, and at that point, Georgia Tech's going to be in the playoff. Miami's still going to be in the playoff. It's the same thing that happened in the ACC last year when you had Clemson end up winning the thing. So you had 2 ACC teams in, and that knocked somebody out of a spot. Well, that could happen here. It could also happen in the Big 12. What if Utah's the 16 seed, but they go in the playoff or in the conference title game and beat Texas Tech? Texas Tech's still going to be in the thing. It's just that Utah is going to be in there as well. And heaven help everybody if both of those things were to happen. That's how you knock some of those at-larges out of the field. I know that sounds fun, but from a media standpoint, like from a media rights network standpoint, that's doomsday for those people. Doomsday. I don't have a media rights deal. I'm not broadcasting any of the playoff games on our YouTube channel. I'm good. I'm fine with whatever, come what may. But the punishment for the conference championship game losers is the other thing to keep an eye on. So here's a scenario, as I'm about to give you my bracket. But here's a scenario I just want you to think about. We're still a ways away. It could be a moot point. Let's just say Notre Dame's sitting there at the 10 seed going into conference championship Saturday. Notre Dame's done. Their season's done. So they're not playing in the conference title game. Let's say Georgia Tech's number 9. Kind of similar to what SMU was dealing with last year. Let's say Georgia Tech's sitting there number 9. Georgia Tech loses to Miami. Is Georgia Tech falling behind Notre Dame? Let's say they fall out entirely. Is the committee willing to punish someone for the audacity of earning their way into their conference title game and playing in it, which Notre Dame doesn't do? It's just, it didn't happen last year. SMU didn't get dropped out last year. That's 1 year. So the committee's sitting there telling you that we're going to emphasize strength of schedule. Remember, we got that new criteria, allegedly, that we're going to be going by. So it's going to really emphasize strength of schedule, and we've got this value monetarily that's baked into these conference title games. We cannot afford to render them irrelevant. Therefore, we can't be punishing people when they make their conference title game. You can't do that. That's an optics nightmare. Ethically, it's a nightmare. Value-wise, it's a nightmare. So just keep that in mind. All right, here is my updated bracket. I am so scared. So here's what it would look like. the numbers actually kind of should be inverted because I believe in home team on bottom. So we would have Georgia go to Oxford in round 1, Georgia versus Ole Miss. We'd have South Florida going to Indiana in round 1. We would have Nebraska on the road at Texas A&M and Notre Dame in Eugene against Oregon. Here is how I have those games shaking out. Give me Georgia over Ole Miss. Give me Indiana over South Florida. Give me Texas A&M beating Nebraska. It was a fun ride. It was a very fun ride. And give me Oregon over Notre Dame, although there is nothing that shocks me. If Marcus Freeman and Notre Dame get in the playoffs, I really value having been there last year. And there is that aura that had existed about Autzen Stadium, but it's dinged a little bit right now because of what Indiana just went in there and did. So I don't necessarily think Notre Dame would be rattled going on the road to Autzen. Save that. Use it as a soundbite if you need to 3 months from now. Mario Cristobal versus Dan Lanning in the second round of the playoffs, buddy. That is popcorn. That is cinema. If you just think it through for a second, just an unbelievable matchup there. I'm going to take, in the following order, Ohio State over Georgia. I'm going to take Alabama over Indiana. That's DeBoer facing a team he used to coach in Indiana. I'm taking Oregon over Miami, and I am taking Texas A&M over Texas Tech. Don't overlook that matchup there in the second round. Texas Tech versus Texas A&M. How about the fact that we got 2 Texas teams in the bracket here? Neither of them have that Longhorn logo. There's a little bit of an upset if you predicted that in July. All right, our semifinals are set. It's 2 national championships, basically. So Ohio State versus Bama, Oregon versus Texas A&M. This got easy for me because my national championship matchup preseason is still in play. So I'll take Alabama versus Oregon in the national championship game. My national champion is still very much in play, so give me Alabama to win the national championship. So if I can just get the bracket to fall that way, if Dan Lanning can get Oregon's act together and Alabama can continue to walk this tightrope, and both of them stay relatively healthy, and once I get in the playoff, it's going to be a tall order to beat Ohio State. It's going to be a tall order to beat A&M because if both of those teams have gotten that far, they're clicking, and those are really good talent rosters. But I'm not coming off my preseason predictions unless I absolutely have to. Again, ethics. We teach it at Pate State. So I started with Alabama and Oregon. I'm sticking with Alabama and Oregon. And if it doesn't come true, it's because kids, coaches, or officials screwed up. It's not because of me. It's not my fault. Quick Trip could fuel you if you wanted to go watch either team play this weekend. Quick Trip fuels the Fall Don't Lie Tour. Quick Trip fuels us every day of our lives, really. Cold brew on tap, gasoline, trail mix, pizza, whatever you need. Protein shakes. So the Fall Don't Lie shirt right there, by the way, is available in the Pate State store. We update it every week. Like we're going to Nashville, which we're already in the city of, but we're going Saturday. The Nashville shirt is available there in the Pate State store, patestatematerial.com. We appreciate Quick Trip, though, fueling the Fall Don't Lie tour. This is the least amount of gas that we'll ever need this Saturday. But in the interest of honoring Quick Trip, our partner, I will not walk to this game. I will drive to this game. Crank it, put it in drive, put it in park. 2 minutes later, we will drive to the game. Just out of a solidarity move with Quick Trip. All right, let's continue. We got games to predict. That's what we do around here. What did this is a bad thing, but I'm going to tell you what just happened. Okay, so normally, if you look at the live chat now, you know why I'm laughing. Normally, I have a pre-typed message that I copy and paste into the live chat a few times per show. Normally, it says, subscribe to the channel, like the video, thanks for watching. Just before we went on air, some guy was arguing with me on Twitter about how Indiana may not be good. Because maybe they beat Oregon, but Oregon's not that good and they're being falsely inflated. I said, that's not all Indiana's done. I said, they also disemboweled Illinois on free TV. That's what I said. But I had to check and see if I was spelling disemboweled right. So I copied and pasted disemboweled, and I put it into Google really quickly to make sure I was spelling it right. Then the show started, and I never unpasted it, or I never uncopied it. I never put my normal chat message in copy. So I just went copy-paste out of muscle memory habit here, and I wrote disemboweled in the live chat. So if you're wondering why I wrote disemboweled in the live chat, that's why. All right. Jesse, you got moderator privileges in there. Tell them to like and subscribe, please. Ole Miss at Georgia, Saturday, 3:30 Eastern kickoff on ABC. This is the moment last year in this game in Oxford, Mississippi, where I thought the Georgia halo sort of started to fade a little bit. Maybe it got dented because Georgia went on to win the SEC championship. They went on to the playoff, and it was crazy. It was miraculous because it was far from a perfect team, but they looked vulnerable in this game last year. I think it was a 28-10 final. Ole Miss outgained them by like 150 or something like that. Ole Miss outrushed Georgia 134-59 in this game. It looked like there were terminal flaws with Georgia. So all week, if you've been listening to Kirby Smart, he's been stressing home field. We need this to be the best home field advantage we've ever had. Now, you may think to yourself, oh, they probably got a lot of recruits in town. He's just saying that. You know, they got a big TV game. They want a really good spectacle for the crowd. Yeah, they want all that. Yeah, all those things are true. Here's what else you need to know. Georgia's been really bad in first halves. They have gotten off to poor starts. Defensively, they have therefore let themselves get put in a hole. They were able to climb out of it against Tennessee. They were not able to climb out of it against Alabama. They got put in it again last week by Auburn and somehow, some way got out of it, but it's a trend you don't want to continue. Ole Miss is number 6 in first half passing in the country. Georgia defensively, first half numbers here, 85th defensively, pass yards per first half. I don't think that's a stat we've ever talked about. They are 130th are the Georgia Bulldogs on defense at completion percentage allowed in the first half. So when you listen to Coach Smart there talk about how imperative it is you get there, show up early, scream as loud as you possibly can early, it's because he understands if Ole Miss grabs a lead on him, it could be a long afternoon there between the hedges. Ole Miss has only been on the road one other time this year, though, and that was against Kentucky. Notably, Lane failed to cover. Notably, Mark Stoops robbed us that day. But my point is, it was a competitive game. They didn't pull away. It was a weird-looking point spread. People kind of had to see it to believe it, and they did. So last week, they're coming out of a bye. They got inexplicably pushed to the limit against Washington State, and fairly, people are looking and saying, are they hollow or are they legit? There's a world where that Washington State outcome is a red herring. And then they go get blasted by Georgia, and everyone says, oh, in retrospect, we should have seen it coming. There is another scenario that you know good and well exists where they didn't pay 2 bits of attention to Washington State, and they've been prepping for Georgia for the better part of a month, and it shows Saturday. I think you'll know early on which is which. So last week, Georgia played Auburn, and I asked myself, what kind of clues did that game leave? It was a weird game. Georgia was down 10-0, could have been 17-0, ended up being 10-3 at the half. But Jackson Arnold was 14 of 19, 107 yards, but he ran it 51 yards in the first half. Those are first half numbers. And they controlled the clock. I mean, Georgia at the 2-minute warning portion, inside the 2-minute warning portion, actually, of the first half had run 12 plays. So the game control got away from them. Fortunately, Auburn didn't pull away, and they sat there and complained about officiating in the second half instead of playing football, and Georgia took it from them. Ole Miss has that quarterback run as well. That's an element with Trinidad Chambliss that you come in here with. The difference is, unlike Auburn, Ole Miss has the explosive play capability through the air and on the ground. Auburn 127th in that department. Ole Miss is 6th. So what if you have to play catch-up here against Ole Miss? You sort of invalidate what should be a key edge for you. Because Ole Miss defensively, they are 98th against the run. You should be able to run the ball on Ole Miss. But that's only if you're not down 14 or 17 points. Because if you've got to throw the ball to beat them, to catch up, in other words, if Georgia just puts themselves in that position again, this is a top 30 pass defense. And so, again, first quarter, first half game script as imperative here for Georgia as it will be all year. The Georgia offense, I think, should be able to stay on schedule here. They don't even have to start ultra fast. They just have to start efficiently. Because I think they found something in the second half against Auburn. Stockton also adds the running ability, obviously, for Georgia. The run game for Georgia. Much improved this year. It's not top 10. I didn't need it to be. I just needed it to be serviceable. It has been a serviceable ground game. Ole Miss run defense can be had. If you're not having to come from behind, they can be had here. Ultimately, what this could come down to is, I mean, there's a spot here where when you're facing a run defense like that, I don't care if you're not vintage Georgia. I don't care if Todd Gurley's not on the field. I don't care if multiple future first-round offensive linemen are spread out left or right there. At some point, you just got to remember, man, we're Georgia. Every now and then Kirby pulls that out. He did it against Texas last year. I just call it a we're Georgia game, where every now and then you just have to reassert yourself. Maybe not reassert dominance, although that's the goal, but maybe this isn't a dominant Georgia team, but maybe situationally, there are just moments where you look and there's a key down and you say, that's Georgia. That's Kirby Smart. That's Georgia for you. I think the game will be decided in the red zone. Ole Miss has settled for 3, a little bit too much for my liking so far this year. They're in the 60s in red zone touchdown percentage. Georgia has a top 5 red zone defense. So that's one of those little stat categories. If you're going to pull an upset like this on the road, you need to invert. And the other thing that I think about is this is Trinidad Chambliss's first road start in the SEC. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jesse. He wasn't the one who started that Kentucky game. And so this is it. Like, this is a big ask for a guy going on the road. It's not a vintage Georgia defense. They don't get pressure like they normally do. So maybe he's given time. Maybe he gets confidence early. As you can tell by the inflection points at various parts of this preview, I have mixed feelings about this game. Let's take a look at what the model thinks. FanDuel's got Georgia minus 7.5 right now. We're a little bit shorter than that. Model likes Ole Miss a little bit more. We got Georgia minus 5, and I don't have a strong feel on it. It's a desperation spot for Georgia. It's a classic Ole Miss wants to win, Georgia needs to win type of moment. Same as Red River Shootout last week. Doesn't always guarantee an outcome, but I just, even though I went to this well and lost early on in the year with the Alabama result in Athens, I always default to trusting Kirby Smart in these spots at home, and I will take Georgia to win, but I don't know if this is a pull-away game for them. I really don't. I think there's enough that Ole Miss has that number right there, 7.5, is a little bit too much for me. I'm not betting the game, so I'm riding the fence on this one. I'm taking Georgia to win. I'm taking Ole Miss plus anything over 7. Which FanDuel is giving me right now. Let's move on. What a game. What a game setting up in South Bend, Indiana. This Saturday night, USC Notre Dame, 7:30 Eastern kick on NBC. How big is this? Friend of the program, Kay Adams, attending the game. College football, Kay, how about that? College football playoff fate. That's what's on the line for Notre Dame here. There is some debate out there that a 2-loss Notre Dame's not getting in. There is no debate about 3-loss Notre Dame. They are Pop-Tart Bowl bound, all due respect. Team Blueberry. It was a statement moment last week for some people when USC did what they did to Michigan. Not me. I just thought it was a very impressive win. As I said Sunday, as I'll say again here on Tuesday night, this is where the statement would be made. You don't make statements. In other words, I view a statement as fundamentally changing what I think about you. You don't make a statement as a favorite in the Coliseum. You make a statement by going on the road. You are a 9.5-point dog, and you're facing the team that you know good and well believes they can physically just lean on you because until further notice, you're still USC, or as Meemaw would say, compared to the Notre Dames of the world, you're a little too light in the britches to pull this off. If you prove that wrong, if you turn that narrative on its ear, that is a statement. The number there, 9.5, makes it very clear. The market still has to see it to believe it with USC. The market also still fully believes in Notre Dame. So what do we think about this game? Well, on the surface, on paper, notably what the game is not played on, but on paper, because that's all we have on Tuesday, this looks like one of those games where there is no total high enough. The total is 61.5 right now. Over, under, that's the total. So if you just look on paper, USC's got the number 2 passing offense in the country. Notre Dame in the 100s in pass defense. Hold on, don't be yelling. There's no need to yell at a screen. I'm going to get to it. I'm going to add all the conditions and the caveats in just a second. I continue. Notre Dame, number 19 passing offense against a USC pass defense that's also in the 100s. So you may think to yourself, fireworks Fireworks. And we have seen a game like that already this year. We've already seen a game played in Notre Dame Stadium where the losing team had 40 points. That A&M game was 41-40. So we have seen some points be scored there. Now, the follow-up is you need to know that, yeah, they gave up 41 that night. They've given up 27 their last 3 games. At Arkansas, Boise, NC State. There is a working theory out there. Maybe there have been some changes behind the curtain there defensively. Maybe that coaching staff gets in that meeting room on Sunday and says, yeah, we're not doing this anymore, so we're going to change this, and this. That's one working theory. Another working theory is, yeah, it was Arkansas and it was Boise and it was NC State. Not all that difficult to flex defensively against them. I think the truth is probably somewhere in between, but we'll find out. A lot is going to be placed on the shoulders of Jaden Maiava. That's the USC quarterback. It's a guy I'm extremely high on. They're high on him. They should be. USC is down multiple tailbacks in this game, so he's got to get it done. Notre Dame's good against the run anyway defensively, so it's gonna have to happen through the air. USC had success through the air in this game last year, but remember, that came with turnovers. They threw 2 pick sixes in this game. Notre Dame, by the way, has forced 9 turnovers in the last 3 games. So they've been taking the ball away. USC gave the ball away in this game last year, and that was in L.A. This is in South Bend. Leonard Moore, number 1 grade per PFF in man coverage at the cornerback position this year against Mekhi Lemon. If you're not able to watch this game on Saturday, don't worry. That matchup will probably happen on Sundays for years to come as well. I just highly recommend you check it out this Saturday. Mekhi Lemon, by the way, leads all of Power 4 in receiving yards per game. So, which way does that matchup go? Because I believe Mekhi Lemon can do work against anyone. It's going to be limited against Leonard Moore, but I'm not. Look, he may shut him down. I just think it's very, very hard to shut that guy down. I think he's the best, along with Jeremiah Smith, the best receivers in the country. And if USC wins that thing, then everything else working downstream of that with those other pass catchers sort of falls into place. Because elsewhere, there are plays to be made against the secondary, I believe. So that's one thing to watch. The other thing is, when we got USC out there defensively, how much pressure can they get on C.J. Carr? Believe it or not, they're 5th in sacks this year. Now, their overall pressure rate's not that great, but they have gotten home when they bring added guys. Danton Lynn against Mike Denbrock, that's a great coordinator versus coordinator matchup. They will bring pressure. They know they have to. Now, with that, opens you up to the possibility that you make some mistakes, or it opens you up to the possibility that you force turnovers. I will just say this. I was on the field in Champaign a few weeks ago when USC went to Illinois, last time they had to travel, really, and it was not good. Not good at all. And Luke Altmaier, known by some in Nashville as Luke Altenheimer, threw for over 300 against USC. Now, Michigan didn't, but Michigan doesn't really believe in passing this year. So they're going to get tested against C.J. Carr. And it'd be a very big surprise to me if they throttled him down, because I think that Notre Dame passing attack's too good as well. So you're going to have to trade points at some point here. I think it all comes back to the same thing with USC, though. You notice how deep we've gotten in this preview without mentioning this. It's done intentionally. I haven't mentioned Jeremiah Love. I haven't mentioned Price. I haven't mentioned the tailbacks. I haven't mentioned the ground game, period, because that's what I wanted to end on. Until further notice, the edge that the Notre Dames of the world have on you is they're bigger and faster and stronger than you. They're deeper than you. They're tougher than you. Just all the stuff that you read on the back of the college football cereal box. That's the edge that Notre Dame has on you. And the thing that sucks about that is they're going to say it about you until you prove otherwise. That's the statement. That's what we're looking to see if USC can do here. Let's take a look at what the model thinks. Let's take a look at what FanDuel thinks. FanDuel right now has Notre Dame minus 9.5. And that moved at the early part of this week because we agreed with it totally early on. We got Notre Dame minus 8.5 with the model. I believe in Lincoln Riley. I believe in Danton Lynn. I believe it's ultra personal for these guys, and you better get this thing figured out, because if this is the last time you guys play this rivalry for a while, so help me, the office of the future commissioner of college football will not look kindly on it. I hate doing this, but I got to go with what I think is the right way to go in this. I know it's a popular sentiment out there that Notre Dame's rolling now, and so they're just going to like bury USC. I'm not sure that happens. But I've also watched USC get buried. Like, there are some worlds where that Illinois game wasn't even close. And they window dressed it, and defensive plays and turnovers kind of made it close. So there are a lot of two-way goes there. I think Notre Dame's going to win the game. I will roll the dice that USC is able to cover this number. So that's another fence ride. I know I did it with Georgia, Ole Miss. I'm doing it here. I think both these games are close, though. So it just so happens they're being played on the same day. I'm going Notre Dame to win, and I'm going USC to cover, which in the end is just another possible one-possession loss that USC looks at and says, oh, we let another one get away. You do not have to let this opportunity get away, though. The opportunity that I'm speaking of is to go to Academy Sports and Outdoors and to buy a jacket, if you don't get it from the Penn State store, of course. You could go get a fishing rod. You could go get a kayak. Hope you live in the South if you're buying that this time of year. But you can go get cold weather gear, sporting goods equipment, obviously. Big League Chew in the checkout line. Academy's been with us for a long time. We appreciate them. It is October, which means November is about to happen, which means December's after that, if we're doing the same calendar this year in 2025, which means Christmas is not too far away. It is never too early to go ahead and start stocking up. You'd be shocked, stunned, amazed at how many things Academy Sports and Outdoors has beyond the obvious that you didn't know they have. And if you can't get there in person, academy.com is a close second. Let's continue. Prediction Tuesday. Going swimmingly so far. Tennessee at Alabama, third Saturday in October. On the actual third Saturday in October. Saturday night, 7:30 Eastern, 6:30 local kick on ABC. You know, there was a period of time where the SEC schedule got jacked up and this thing was being played second Saturday, fourth Saturday. Nope, third Saturday in October. Both, I believe, both you. I am of the opinion both of these teams should wear their home uniform for this game. Okay? And I can't do anything about that right now. Maybe one day I'm commissioner and I can just order this. I don't really believe in the power of the pen. Okay? I believe that the people should have the final say, except with this, because I think both fan bases would want it. And I can't do anything about this weekend, but I really wish we could just see the crimson and the orange, no matter which venue they play this game in. Anyway, that's down the road a little ways. As for Saturday, keep in mind, Alabama goes to Missouri, they win the other day. Have you listened to a lot of the noise that's come out of Tuscaloosa since then? Have you listened to Ryan Grubb talk and Ty Simpson talk? I think they accurately have expressed how much meat they believe was left on the bone, how much specifically in the passing game they could have done in addition to what they did. And I believe that. I actually thought one of the biggest mismatches that should have existed in that game was Bama's wide receiver core versus Missouri's secondary. They made some plays, but it was not a glaring mismatch. Buddy, you want to talk about a glaring mismatch on paper, check out Bama's wide receiver core versus Tennessee's secondary. This is the number 15 passing offense in the country versus a pass defense in the 120s. Number 18 in explosive passes versus a defense in the 120s in that category as well. So, once again, we arrive at this strange spot where it looks like Bama should be able to rip them. If I think they got the best quarterback in the country, or at least one of them in Ty Simpson, which I do, if I think they got one of the best receiving cores in the country, which I do, there should be a lot of plays to be made here. But again, this is not a football field in my hands. This is just a piece of paper. So what does Tennessee do to win this game? Because that makes it sound really lopsided. It makes it sound really one-sided. Bama's about to roll. Well, how Tennessee wins this game to me is instead of getting caught up in the storm, you have to kind of create the storm yourself. You lead the SEC in sacks, do you not? Do you not? Yes, you do. Stats and info already confirmed. I think also there is a world where, Alabama's been very good at not turning the ball over so far this year. And there's a world where you get these stats that are out there in your face and you think, oh, stats are static. So what is now always will be. But if you've watched college football for any length of time, anytime there's an upset, period, much less one of these big rivalry game upsets, the nature of those outcomes is that you ripped up the stat sheet that Saturday. Something happened in that game that flies in the face of statistical wisdom. That could be one of Tennessee's edges this Saturday. You lead the SEC in sacks. Alabama's offensive line, especially on the right side, has been vulnerable as of late. I think that you may see continued rotation over there at that right tackle spot until they eventually, well, maybe they don't arrive at a conclusion, but I think eventually they will. Three defensive touchdowns in the last 6 games, number 2 in takeaways. The folks over at VolQuest did a great job of just bunching a lot of these stat profiles together to make the case for Tennessee. I happen to agree with it. That's why I tossed it in the show. So, yeah, Bama's only lost 2 turnovers all year. They could lose 2 in the first half Saturday, for all I know. That's one thing that needs to happen for Tennessee. The other one is, let's say that doesn't happen. Let's say the game is not going to be fundamentally decided by turnovers or big special teams plays, and you just got to trade punches with Alabama in a conventional way. You got to control the game on the ground. That's your other path here. Tennessee has a top 25 rushing offense right now, and Alabama is in the 90s in run defense. Now, if you've watched Bama games, you may think, man, I knew they weren't elite, but they haven't felt that bad. Well, that's because it hasn't been 6-yard run, 8-yard run, 7-yard run. What it's been is a lot of manageable stuff and boom, explosive, 50 yards. They are 116th in explosive runs allowed. That's what's bitten Alabama. So if you can rip some of those off, and especially if you can mix tempo in, which Josh Heupel does very effectively, there were a lot of times last year in this game where Tennessee won the game, but there were a lot of times, albeit with Nico at quarterback, where I thought they schemed guys open very well, and the guy just overthrew them. They still did enough to win. I thought Tennessee left a lot on the table last year. So the other thing with Alabama is we don't know the status of Jam Miller. Jam Miller had to leave the game last week. He's dealing with a concussion protocol this week, so that's kind of in the hands of doctors. And if he's not able to go, or if he's less than 100%, what does that possible lack of balance do? Because Bama hasn't had statistical balance all year. Like they have seldom topped 100 yards on the ground with a tailback. I think they've done it once. But even if that's not right, they have not run the ball statistically effectively. What they have done is they've stayed committed to the run because Jam Miller is enough of a threat that the defense has to respect it. If he doesn't play Saturday, then you think about how opportunistic Tennessee defensively looks at that and just thinks to themselves, we think we can defend the run maybe with a lighter box than we normally would have to commit to it if Jam Miller was playing. And even though we know they're going to be stubborn, Alabama will be stubborn, Ryan Grubb will run the ball. He knows he has to make sure his deep shots are open and his passing game's open. We're not going to get baited by that. That kind of could happen in this game. If you don't possess the balance in terms of making the defense respect the run, that's real balance. If you don't possess that, that's another way Tennessee could tilt the game. I made a big case for Tennessee here because Alabama's a big favorite. So let's take a look at what the model thinks. FanDuel's got Bama minus 8.5. The model is right in line with that. We've got Alabama minus 8. Here's the problem. There is, I think, going to be a dam-breaking spot in the second half of this game where it really goes against Tennessee. Early on, I don't think that's going to be the case, but there are too many big plays to be made, and I know good and well there's an emphasis in that building down there in Tuscaloosa this week about what the strength of that offense is, how underutilized some of the elements of that passing game have been, and you just drool all over your play sheet looking at what you got coming in terms of Tennessee secondary. And, that was a 27-point effort last week that I thought could have been closer to 40. I think this week's effort will be closer to 40, and I think it'll be too much for Tennessee. So I'm going to take Alabama to win. I will actually lay the number here. I do think Alabama's going to win the game by double digits. They're watching us in Northport, Alabama. They're watching us in Tampa, Florida. They're watching us in Bogota, Colombia. We appreciate it. Let's continue. I almost did the copy-paste thing again in the live chat. We can't do that. We cannot say disembowel twice on one show. That's one time's okay. Like one time's a warning. But the disembowelment quota on this show has been and always will be once per show. So over under 1.5, we want the under to hit. We will be right here Saturday in Nashville, Tennessee. LSU at Vanderbilt, 11 a.m. local kick. This trip, a very short one, will be fueled by Quick Trip. Fall Don't Lie Tour in the house. over here at Vanderbilt. And LSU's coming in here with some juice, maybe a fair amount of juice. They just beat South Carolina last week. Speaking of leaving meat on the bone, how about LSU? Ground game finally woke up a little bit, didn't it? 5.5 yards per carry. LSU in this economy running the ball. Was that real? You guys really mean that? I hope you do. I said about Tuesday of last week. You remember what I tweeted out, Jesse? We didn't even flex on this. We could have. I said LSU and Texas are going to look way better this Saturday. And wouldn't you know it, Texas goes and stuffs Oklahoma, and LSU runs the ball as effectively as they have all year. In fact, that was their first time above 4 yards per carry all season. 5.5. So it's a whole new day for the LSU run game. Or is it? Here's how bad it's been. Even with that rushing effort baked in, they're still 113th in rushing offense. And Vandy is number 16 in the country in run defense. So you're not just waltzing into Nashville and running all over Clark Lee and Vanderbilt. I don't think. The potential is there with this LSU team. I said coming out of last weekend's game, I know they didn't put 45 on the board, but I've been critical of Joe Brady and that offensive staff because I thought they're capable of more. They did show more out of the bye. It was very obvious. There were a lot of sleepless nights spent in that building, exhausting all resources. And I thought they did okay last week, but more so they showed potential. Like I watched that LSU effort, and I said, well, there goes Nuss's usual one or two inexplicable throws, which is just going to be part of the LSU experience this year. But I watched it and said, you know, this makes me a little more confident than the usual 20-point effort from LSU. So the potential is there. This is what I call the thin ice theory. If it's water, it's water. And if it's solid ice, you can go and do jumping jacks on it, and it's not going to break. I'm trying to figure out how thick the LSU offensive ice is because I can see it on the surface after last week. It's there. It's very solid. I just tossed a pebble out there. There were no ripples. So there's some ice that's formed. Do I feel confident enough to walk on this yet? I don't know. Let's continue. In the grand scheme of things, LSU versus Vanderbilt, LSU wants to throw the ball to win. They're probably getting Aaron Anderson back this week. Garrett Nussmeier came out of the bye where, fingers crossed, he has a little bit better health about himself. I don't know that he'll ever be 100% the entire season. Vandy is 69th against the pass. So, look, Garrett Nussmeier has thrown interceptions in 4 of his last 5 games. We can't be doing that on the road or ever. We especially can't be doing that Saturday. I mean, that's how Vanderbilt ends up getting you towards the half, where they've got a 2.5 to 1 plays run advantage, and time of possession's all out of whack, and you can't even get your offense going. Vandy's top 30 in takeaways, by the way. So that's just sitting there. Vandy is stewed, by the way. They didn't disappear. You hadn't seen them in a couple of weeks. You hadn't seen them since that Bama game because they had a bye last week. And I noticed the country kind of wanted to forget about Vanderbilt. I know the AP voters did. They may have dropped Vandy last week because they didn't play. And according to the AP, Vandy didn't play. That means they didn't win. We need to drop them. You drop them 3 or 4 spots. You're getting Vandy's best coming out of the bye. Like, they didn't go anywhere. They're a one-loss team. They're a top 25 team. They got 1 loss in conference play, just like a bunch of the rest of y'all do, including LSU. So you are an underdog in their building. In case I didn't state that off the top, that number at the bottom of the screen, if you're watching on YouTube, is not a typo. Vandy is favored by 2.5 against LSU. Just so we've properly set the table here. LSU has seen some mobile quarterbacks before this year. They saw Lenore Sellers, and they bottled him up last week. Trinidad Chambliss at Ole Miss had a little bit better luck against them. Blake Baker's an American hero at defensive coordinator, though. So I think they'll have a good plan Saturday. I think Vandy will have a good plan Saturday. Frankly, I'm surprised the total is in the upper 40s, but I'm right at 500 betting totals this year, so I'm not touching the total, but I'm a solid underlean on this one if I had to. Each team is 95th or worse in penalty yards per game. So, someone, preferably more than one, but at least someone's got to get their act together there. Pavia versus Blake Baker, man. This is what we pay the money for. This is what we show up for with the Fall Don't Lie Tour. We want to see him. We want to see that LSU defense against Diego Pavia. We saw Bama look good against him, but there were also 2 red zone turnovers. And if it doesn't go that way, if it goes Vandy's way, if they execute better, who knows? Maybe they put a much more crooked number, as Meemaw would say, up on Alabama. Well, you've had 2 weeks since then. to get yourself right and to get ready for LSU to come into town. And now it's kind of Super Bowl mode around here. It's Tuesday as I'm talking to you, and Nashville's kind of ready for this. Let's take a look at what the model thinks. Vandy is a 2.5-point favorite at FanDuel. The model actually thinks the wrong team is favored. The model is LSU -1. I have as little a feel on this game as any game out there. Jesse, I think I may have changed my mind. I think I may have possibly changed my mind. I walked out onto the set tonight, and I was going to pick LSU to win. The more I think about Vandy's season and how it could go versus how it's gone so far, it's a little bit of a crossroads moment. It's a crossroads moment for both of them. I go back to the thin ice theory. I need to see it one more time from LSU on the road before I'm ready to fully believe. Boy, I'm on the fence about this. And we already made the graphic for LSU. I'll go Vandy. I'll take Vanderbilt to win. It's crazy you're talking like this with a point spread favorite. I like LSU, man. But I think Vanderbilt's going to win the game. All right, I'll take Vandy to win and cover, I guess. There it is. I changed it to Vandy. I don't know how you guys just did that. I didn't even think we had the ability to change graphics on the fly, but that literally just got changed in the past 5 minutes. I guess we're no friend to people in Baton Rouge right now. Look, you got to follow your heart. The head said LSU, the heart said Vandy. But as for the rest of you, I mean, in Nashville, if you want to support the pick, my goodness, please do it. We had a terrible, terrible thing happen today. We're moving on here. We had a terrible thing happen today. I am a big believer in Cocktober. South Carolina football in the month of October, thus Cocktober, I think is a very dangerous combination. Now, they did lose to LSU last weekend. And for the record, we picked LSU to win and cover in that game. No LSU hating here. Anyway, that has shaken a little bit people's belief in Cocktober. I'm all in. I think that South Carolina is going to give Oklahoma fits this Saturday. Cocktober comes to Columbia. The problem is not everyone agrees with me. And so one of you hit up Grok today. Free plug for Grok. Good for Elon Musk. He's going to make something of himself financially. And they asked Grok if Cocktober is a myth perpetuated by me. And Grok comes back and says, yes, the stats show Cocktober is more myth than reality. South Carolina is 5-9 in October under Shane Beamer. Josh Pate does love promoting it, though. Cockvember, 13-4, is the real deal. First off, Cockvember is inappropriate. Stick with Cocktober. And secondly, it doesn't roll off the tongue. And thirdly, if they get buried in October, November is not going to matter. We need Cocktober. I'm not even predicting the game on the show tonight. I'm just telling you, Twitter has fallen. X has fallen. Whatever you want to call it, it has fallen. I'm not going blue sky on you. I think I just may tap out entirely. So you may not see me on there for a couple of days because I don't need AI attacking me. I know South Carolina football, and Cocktober is very much alive. Let's continue. Jesse's in a bad way. And he's in a bad way because he is coachless. He's got an interim coach at Penn State, but Penn State is in a state of flux right now. So Kyle from Harrisburg hit me up, and I wanted to address the two things he asked. He said, you sounded adamant about James Franklin not getting fired. How can you not see where Penn State fans are coming from? Also, do you have any ideas about the next guy for them? Kyle, I 150% understand where Penn State fans are coming from. So much so that I think I said on the show several times, I would feel the same way. My vantage point was not one that was attached emotionally to Penn State. I was looking at it through what I thought were logical lenses. But I said all the while, I completely get the sentiment. I mean, I could probably vocalize what you guys are feeling as good as you can. And so I looked at it, and you got to know something about me. I got personal relationships with a lot of these guys, but it's not even that. Because there are guys out there I don't know. There are guys I've never met that I would say the same stuff about. I always look at firing coaches as last resorts. And I didn't feel it was last resort time at Penn State. Some of you fundamentally disagree with that. Like some of you looked at the Colin Ward footage that we're showing on the YouTube show, if you're watching it right now, and there's nothing between James, or there's nothing behind the eyes there for James Franklin. And they're booing him walking off the field, and you feel like the team's dead and the season's dead, which I admitted. I thought it was a dead season. It wasn't going to get any better. To be clear, If they had retained him, it wasn't going to get any better. I'm just always a believer that things can get rectified and things have changed across the landscape of college football. But I completely get where you guys were coming from. I had a lot of people push back and say, I don't agree with Pate's take, because what he's saying is you should never fire someone unless you definitively have an upgrade out there. And what you guys were saying is, nah, we're willing to take the risk. Yeah, there is no guarantee that who we hire is going to be better than James Franklin. But if the best we can do is just good, we're not okay with that, because we don't invest good, we invest great. So we're going to chase great. We've had enough good. We're going to chase great. I was listening to Andy Staples talk earlier today. He put it a really good way. He said he agreed that Franklin should have been fired. So we disagreed on that front. But the case he made a lot of sense. And he said the entire premise of James Franklin, as of late, had been he wins the games that he's supposed to, and the only games he loses are the few where he's an underdog. So he's like very, very properly rated, and that's why you keep paying him what you're paying him, and that's why you keep defending him. But the moment that dynamic changes, like the moment you lose 2 games in a row as a 3+ touchdown favorite, well, not only then are you not winning the games you're not supposed to, you're not even winning the games you are supposed to. At that point, all the value for defending him dries up. I understand that logic. I disagree that the result should be that knee-jerk, or the decision should be that knee-jerk. I will also acknowledge this. I don't know that there's a whiff of scandal around this. If there was, that's a fundamental game changer. I will also say, since we had the show on Sunday, the language in the contract about mitigation clauses coming out, that's a game changer too. That means it's very, very unlikely Penn State actually has to pay $50+ million in buyout money. Mitigation clauses are just those clauses where it's in your contract that if they fire you, you've got to make a solid effort to go get another job immediately, and the salary they pay you is offset in the buyout. Translation: go get the UCLA job, make them pay you $5 million a year, and then we're going to owe you $5 million per year less. So instead of paying you $50 over the span of a few years, we pay you like $15 or $20. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So now we're where we are. The second part of that question was, do I have any idea where they're going to go? I don't think there's more than meets the eye right now. It's early. Like, if you're looking at Pete Nakos, who is on the phone constantly, I work in the same building as Nakos. So I watch him do 2 things: go out in the parking lot and shoot hoops, and then sit on his phone all day. And he was burning that phone today. And so I'm sitting there. I mean, I got the cup to the door, and I'm listening. I know good and well who he's talking to, and I know that information's legit. So when Pete Nakos tells you Matt Rule is the lead candidate right now, until further notice, Matt Rule is the lead candidate. Kurt Cignetti absolutely will be coveted here. I told you I'd go after Matt Campbell. I think he's on the list. The Marcus Freeman stuff's a little interesting to me. Like, I don't think Freeman would ever go to Penn State. That doesn't mean Pat Kraft couldn't take a wild swing at him. So, yeah, there may be legitimacy there, and this is my opinion speaking now. There may be legitimacy there in a sense that Marcus Freeman's incredible at his job, so anyone who has a job opening is dumb not to try and lure him. I don't think he would be lured to Penn State, but again, that's just my personal opinion speaking. But the thing with Matt Rule, look, selfishly, I hope Matt Rule stays at Nebraska, because I think Rule at Nebraska is really good for college football. I think there's something to be said in this entire, this entire coaching search snow globe, if you will. Anytime it happens, if you've ever been pursued professionally, it's one thing to deal in 50,000-foot theoreticals. Like, oh, if so-and-so ever offered me, I think I'd probably go. Or if they offered me, I don't think I would go. That means nothing. When they put the paper in front of you, here's the offer. That, and only then, is when it's real. And so there's going to be a moment, I think, if things go the way they look like they're going to go, there could very well be a moment where, and it's 2 months from now maybe, Matt Rule actually has the Penn State offer. And you got to ask yourself, do you think he would turn that thing down? Not when it's theoretical in October, but when it is on a piece of paper in front of him in December. Would he turn it down? Is his team in the playoff, like I predicted them to be? Does that timetable have any impact on this? That's just some stuff to think about. The other thing to think about is, yes, it's the middle of the season. So right now, this stuff's going to garner big headlines. It's not going to garner big headlines after Saturday. It's like chalk on the driveway. Once the rain comes through, or in our case, all the chalk on the driveway is the coaching search stuff. Franklin got fired. Well, we got a Saturday's worth of games coming through that'll wash the driveway off. Once that happens, Penn State message boards will be talking about it, but nothing's going to happen until December. This isn't like a mid-season trade where Penn State announces next week, we're hiring Kurt Cignetti. He will no longer coach Indiana this year. So a lot of stuff's happening behind the scenes. That's the way the coaching searches are going to work out. The second thing, and if I'm a coach, I don't care who it is, I'm very cognizant of this. The second thing is more jobs are going to come open. I promise you, Penn State's the first major job to come open. By major, I mean top 15. It is not the last top 15 job to come open. Anyone who is in demand knows that. Anyone's agent who is in demand knows that. So you want to see the entire landscape before you make decisions. And a lot of these candidates are going to be candidates from multiple jobs. Plural of jobs. So those are just some things to consider. But I do think the early lists out there are pretty much on the up and up. Like follow Nakos, follow Pete Nakos. He's very, very in touch with this stuff and spends 27 hours a day on the phone. Let's continue. Jesse, what do we have? JP poll? Yeah, I think we got JP poll. Okay. Guys, I'll just intro it. Bradley, here's your intro point. We do the JP poll every Tuesday night. These are not rankings. These are power ratings. And I am as beside myself with one aspect of the JP poll this week as I could possibly be. For those of you who are new, these are not my rankings. I do those on Thursday. I've got the computer model over here, and it is built to spit out teams in order of how the model would favor them on a neutral field. Now, before you crap all over the model, this thing has won us money 7 out of the last 8 years we have used it to bet. The Ramen Noodle Express is largely powered by the model, but the JP poll is as well. Now, the model largely has our best interest in mind, but it doesn't actually have a mind because it's a computer. So there's some times where we see things that the model can't see. And trust me when I tell you, friends, that's about to happen tonight. Okay, with that in mind, let me show you 20 through 16. And I'm just going to say this out loud. If you're watching on YouTube, you're already laughing. I'm just going to say this out loud for the podcast crowd, then I'm going to come back to it. Vandy is number 20. Okay. Penn State is number 19. Just hold your laughter for a second. Clemson is 18. Southern Cal's up 5 spots to number 17, and LSU is 16. I am so irate that the JP poll and the model has Penn State top 20 that I had Prez, who works graphics for us, manually override the power rating. But I didn't tell him remove Penn State, because that would be unethical. I had him draw an asterisk next to the Penn State logo and put the reasoning behind Penn State being power rated top 20 beneath it. And the reason is drugs. Drugs. That's the only reason Penn State could be power rated there. Or put another way, the model is high on talent. And it is taking Penn State's talent roster and saying, wait, you programmed me to value this. And yeah, I programmed you to value that. Do you also not understand it's a dead team? And I'm not talking to you guys right now. This is just between me and the model. I'll be with you in a second. Do you not get how that works? Put it down. Put the pipe down and actually take a look. Use your common sense. You don't have common sense because you're a computer. Okay, so yes, technically Penn State's 19. Also, yes, there would be way more than 19 teams favored over Penn State this week. But if you think that the model's alone on this, I need to remind you, Penn State's playing Iowa this weekend. Do you know Penn State opened and was briefly favored against Iowa before it immediately got bet across 0 and now Iowa's favored? Why is that? Well, it's because the odds makers use the same kind of intel that we do to feed into their systems and their models. All of you, drugs. Let's go 15 through 11. Tennessee's number 15. They play at Alabama this weekend. Utah, we are still high on. The model has not sold its Utah stock even after that blowout loss to Texas Tech. Missouri and Oklahoma are 13 and 12. Now, Texas Tech's 11. And I got to tell you, again, I know you guys may not believe this, or you may have to see it to believe it. I've only got a 2.25 point gap, a 2.25 point gap between Utah and Texas Tech, neutral field. I'm like you, okay? If FanDuel, if that game were played today in neutral field, like Arlington, for example, and they gave me Texas Tech minus 2.5 against Utah, yeah, I'd lay tons of money on it. It'd be a best bet for me. But I'm not here to tell you which way I'd bet. I'm here to tell you what the model says about these teams, and then you can dissect it appropriately. Number 10 is Ole Miss. They're down 3 spots after beating Washington State, very unimpressively. They go to Georgia Saturday. Texas A&M's number 9. Texas is number 8. Now, you'll notice Texas didn't move up any for us after beating Oklahoma. Why is that? Because we already had Texas top 10. We got trashed for that last week, if you'll recall. This is so stupid. The model is drunk on Texas. That's an evergreen statement. But in this particular moment, the model was right about Texas. And we believe Texas should have been a point spread favorite over Oklahoma, even with John Mateer playing. We were adamant about that last week. We got crapped on for it. The folks who made the comments are silent now. You see, because we had Texas where they should have been. We had Oklahoma where they should have been. That's why neither of those teams really moved all that much. We got the result that we thought we would get. We were keeping the teams exactly where the model had them. We got Oregon at 7. They are down 5 spots. We do not believe the Penn State subsequent results after the Oregon game should devalue the Oregon win at Penn State. Meaning, Oregon went to Penn State and they killed Penn State. As a team, they killed them. And then Penn State played like a dead team the next 2 weeks. Franklin got fired because of it. I don't believe, nor do you believe, Penn State would have gotten beaten by UCLA and Northwestern had they beaten Oregon. So that sucked the life out of Penn State. I am not retroactively devaluing or taking credit away from Oregon beating Penn State because of that, because they're the cause of it. So Notre Dame's number 6. Again, if you've doubted the model continuing to have Notre Dame this high, I only ask you to look at this game this weekend. All this is based on, by the way, this thing's just who would be favored against who on a neutral field by how many. Okay, well, Notre Dame plays Southern Cal this Saturday, not on a neutral field. They play them in South Bend. So let's add 3 points for home field. Notre Dame's a 9.5-point favorite in that game. So even if I subtract the home field value, they're a 6 to a 6.5-point favorite over USC. USC's not a bad team. We got USC at 17. I'm not making the case here to defend Notre Dame covering or anything. I'm just telling you, if you think because of 2 losses, Vegas is going to have Notre Dame plummet in their odds making, you're crazy. Notre Dame's way up there right now. There are not many teams that would be favored against Notre Dame. So they're number 6. Here's 5 through 1. Georgia's 5. Alabama's number 4. We didn't need to move them. We already had them up here. So like Bama keeps winning these games, but we never dropped them. We never dropped them beneath Florida State, for example, after week 1. Remember, that was a while back. Remember week 2? We still had Bama way ahead of Florida State. And everyone was like, how's that possible? This thing's clickbait, Pate. Florida State, crickets. Bama top 5. Again, sometimes the model knows what it's doing. Indiana is the number 3 team in the JP poll. I can't believe what's happening. They are plus 11 points in their power rating from where they opened the season. They are plus 8 spots from where they were last week. So the model looked at that result, and it basically said game on. Like all the cobwebs that were over the model's eyes about Indiana have been wiped away. It is perfectly understandable how Indiana would be favored or be ranked top 3 in a poll, in a merit-based poll. I don't really think people properly understand how crazy it is that in a power rating model, power rating format, like neutral field favorability format, that the University of Indiana, or Indiana University, is above Alabama and Georgia and Notre Dame and Oregon and Texas at any point in the season. I don't think people understand how crazy that is. I don't even think I fully understand it. We got Miami 2. We got Ohio State 1. Some quick notes here. Ohio State is a runaway number 1 right now. We have a 4-point gap between Ohio State and number 2 Miami. To give you an idea of how wide a margin that is, there's 4 points between Ohio State and Miami. There are 4 points between Miami at number 2 and the number 11 team. So there's as wide a gap between number 1 and 2 as there is between 2 and 11. So good for Ryan Day. Again, I don't really think Ryan Day's in it for the trophies. He doesn't care so much about the Big Ten championship game, Michigan rivalry, national titles and playoffs. Ryan Day chases being number one in the JP poll. And for another week, he's there. It's a streak. It's a trend now. I don't know what we should send him. I don't know if that's chalice worthy. But if you believe in the JP poll and you believe in Ohio State, and I know good and well you believe in at least one of those, you can go bet him at FanDuel right now. Exclusive odds provider of the show. I'm about to add a couple of best bets aboard the Ramen Noodle Express for this weekend. But FanDuel, the exclusive odds provider, but also if you'll notice back when I was doing playoff predictions at the beginning of the show, Bradley was throwing up a lot of random numbers on the screen. Well, those aren't random numbers. Those are odds to win conferences. And they aren't hypothetical. You could bet every one of those. So if you saw like Texas, and you really think they're about to have a second half surge, and you saw what they are in odds to win the SEC, you can go bet them right now. You could also just bet them on the field. Who do they play? I think Kentucky. I believe they play them this Saturday. Yeah, you can go do that. If you're a new sign-up, by the way, use that QR code, or if you're listening or don't want to use QR codes, you can go to FanDuel.com/Josh Pate. Lay $5 on the most sure thing you can find. And if it hits, you'll get $300 in bonus bets. Just a nice little welcome to the family moment from FanDuel there. Speaking of, I would like to take this opportunity to close the show with two added best bets. So far this week, let me make sure we have this. We're on Syracuse plus 11.5 against Pitt. We're on Mississippi State plus 9.5 at Florida. All right, we are going to add to that Arizona plus 1.5 against Houston. And we're going to, again, ride with Northern Illinois plus 11.5. They are at Ohio. That's going to be a tough game for them. That's why they're being given 11.5 points. So Cuse, Mississippi State, Arizona, and Northern Illinois so far, with plenty of additions to come throughout the week. Remember, if you're watching or listening, we love you. Every one of us, even producer Jesse and Bradley, we love you. Just subscribe to the channel. You don't even need to say I love you too. Instead of doing that, we prefer you subscribe to the channel or the podcast. It doesn't do anything for you. Your life remains the same. Ours gets better because we have more subs. And eventually we're going to get to 500K, probably before Thanksgiving. And at that point, we've got to take suggestions for how we celebrate. First things first, though, we got to get there. So make sure you subscribe. And tell 5 of your friends to do the same. Bonus points if you subscribe on, like, your mom's phone, and she'll never even know. Like, what she doesn't know in this case really doesn't hurt her. All right, let's go home and eat dinner. For producer Jesse, director Bradley, I'm Josh Pate. We'll be back 1 hour early Thursday night, 7 Eastern, 6 Central. Kubelik, I'm told, will join the show. We'll see. Until then, take care. Have a great middle of your week, and God bless.